President Biden reminding us of recent supply chain woes and how things got better during a recent visit to the Port of Los Angeles. Welcome to Inside the Issues. I'm Alex Cohen. The president touted how they worked hard to contend with a host of challenges to move more goods at a faster pace. And he announced that the port has been breaking new records when it comes to the amount of cargo moved. And guess what? The port has done it once again. Last month, they moved 876,611 20-foot equivalent units, or TEUs, as it is known in the industry. And that, my friends, is the busiest June in the port's 115-year history. But can they keep up this pace, especially as a contract with the dock workers hangs in the balance? For more on this front, we're joined by Seroka, the executive director of the Port of Los Angeles and first-time guest in studio. It is so great to have you here with us in person tonight.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Alex.
Congratulations on this new record, especially considering all of the problems that the president was referring to that we've seen in the past. In layman's terms, because I know this is a very complicated engineering feat, but how are we doing better when it comes to moving cargo from the ports and getting it where it needs to go?
Alex, we had our best first quarter all time. Our second quarter was runner-up in our history. And through the midway point of this year, we're going box for box with our record-setting 2021. It's about everybody coming together in the supply chain, trying to squeeze out every level of efficiency possible and doing things better. I'd like to say that we're a lot smarter than we were a year ago. Data helps us anticipate a little bit more and make these handoffs between our partners in the supply chain that much more fluid.
I know you are not necessarily the economics financial expert guy, but you have such an interesting lens on it because you're the first one to kind of see firsthand how much is coming in. And I have to say, we're hearing so much about inflation, potentially looming recession. It surprised me a little bit to think that there's still so much coming and going. Why do you think that is? And do you think we have everything up and running to the point where we contend with what's ahead? Halloween, back to school shopping, the Christmas holidays 2022.
As we were closing out last year, we said we had to hit the mark on 3 specific segments in 2022. First was an early Lunar New Year. So we saw that rush come in right after the holidays and at the beginning of the year. Did very well there. Second was that major retailers were telling us they wanted to use the second quarter for inventory replenishment. And we saw a higher wave of cargo than we normally would in that so-called slack season. Then we come here to this midway point of the year, and many told us on the import side of our ledger that we would see an earlier than normal peak season. Folks didn't want to get tangled up in congestion and supply chain dislocations. They wanted to get a head start. What I see now is that some may have more inventory than they thought they would. Large, big boxes are saying they may even discount some goods. But the cargo coming to us in the weeks and months ahead looks different than the inventory that's on the ground right now. We're going to need that back-to-school product, Halloween goods, winter coats, boots for seasonal fall products, and then the all-important year-end holidays.
So it sounds like that's fascinating. Sounds like the traffic is not slowing down anytime soon. I want to talk a little bit about how we get it from these ships that come into the places it needs to go, because that is always a work in progress. I know I'm not telling you anything new there. Part of it is done by rail, but a big part of it hinges on trucks. And lately we've seen trucks maybe moving into some areas that communities aren't quite used to them as they were before. And sometimes, we hear from residents, wait a minute, I didn't buy this house thinking that I would become a major, stopping place for trucks and moving cargo. What do you say to folks and communities out there about, yes, we need to meet these needs and get these goods out there, but we realize it has an impact here locally?
Right. We're saying what we've said all along. If you have issues, please bring them to us. And led by our council member, Joe Buscaino, and one of our harbor commissioners, Lucia Moreno-Linares, they formed a community team in Wilmington because what we saw were containers and chassis and trucks parked all throughout our neighborhoods, and it was just too much. and folks really voiced out. But having those two well-known leaders take the stern on this, start talking, bringing people together, we made improvements. It was a coalition of LAPD, Los Angeles Port Police, County Sheriff, and so many others that started to cite those who violated the law and just let folks know, hey, we're out there. Please obey what we have in place right now as far as all that container traffic, whether it going through neighborhoods with passing trucks or leaving that cargo on the roads for the next day's pickup, or worse yet, longer than that.
Yeah. As we've been talking here, Gene, our viewers have been seeing images from your port. I want to take us for a moment many thousands of miles away to another massive port. This is the Dutch port of Rotterdam, which folks can see on their screens right now. In 1993, it became the first port to introduce machine automation. And many see this as the model of the future. And, of course, there are advantages to machines. They can't catch COVID. They're not going to demand bigger wages. How big of a role do you see automation playing at the Port of Los Angeles going forward?
Alex, I know the folks in Rotterdam very well. Allard Castellane runs that port, and he is fantastic. Automation and robotics at ports, especially here in Los Angeles, is the most polarizing conversation we have.
That it is.
At the end of the day, with all the complexities, the needs of the private sector, the workforce, the political environment, we cannot leave the worker behind. And that's why we have endeavored to build the nation's first goods movement training campus. That's the ability not only to bring in longshore, but truck drivers, mechanics, welders, and folks from all walks of life that need to be trained and certified on the job. In the look of robotics here at our ports, we have 3 marine terminals between Los Angeles and Long Beach of the 12 that have some semblance of robotics today. A 4th has announced that. For the longshore person that's out on the job today, they may need to be upskilled or reskilled to work in different ways. We need to deliver that capability to them. And for the younger folks coming in, they want to know they have a career to move into as well for years and years to come. Throughout this entire time of the surge in cargo volume, we've brought more longshore members onto the docks to work all this cargo. So we've got to find that true balance between the investment in the next generation technology and making sure our workers not only advance but flourish in that environment.
Yeah. You said that no one needs to be left behind. There was a recent report underwritten, I should note, because this is part of it, as you mentioned. All these things can get political. There are contract negotiations at play. This was a report underwritten by the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. They found that automation at both your port and the neighboring port of Long Beach has eliminated nearly 536 hours and $41.8 million by their count in wages annually for dock workers. When you hear those numbers, does it strike you somewhere in the gut? Do you feel like, in terms of that retraining, that upskilling that you're talking about, is enough of that happening right now at this moment? Might there be in the balance some who need to find a different career path?
Yeah. We need to accelerate the training and capabilities of today's worker as well as that for tomorrow's. I have a copy of that report. I've read through it, and I understand it is valid. I live and work there every day, as you know, and I see what happens. But when it comes to automation, if this is going to be the pathway in the future, it should not be done just simply to eliminate workers. Use it to expand capacity. Our ports, along with Long Beach and Los Angeles combined, are going to grow, save anything catastrophic that happens. How do you handle all of that cargo? And if you can supplement the volume of that cargo with robotics, you've got to be able to do it to expand capacity, which will also mean expanding the workforce. So I know that's a big topic of what folks are talking about today, the employers and the labor guys with the ILWU, but that's the mindset we have. It's not to cut back, not to retrench on how we manage all this cargo and send it to other ports. It's about how we can expand that capacity and its workforce.
We just have about 30 seconds left, but I want to end on a fun note. If people want to get an up-close view of how all this is happening, public tours are coming back. Can you give a quick shout-out for that?
Oh, that's right. 2 times a week at minimum. We want to bring the kids back from the schools, the families from the community, and everybody in between. We're even pet-friendly. So come on down to the port. We'll set you up and get you to see this magnificent engineering marvel.
Indeed. And if folks want to get more information, follow the Port of L.A. on Instagram. They've got details terminals there. Gene Seroka, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks, Alex. Great to see you.
And up next on this episode, a look at the future of democracy.